So Alain, the webcam and microphone is yours.
Well, thanks, Estelle. Okay, so I will first start with some description of Eclipse project and saying that 6 experts from biology and ecology, as well as technical and engineering, have worked on, okay, sorry. Yeah, has worked on the 97 publications that were used for analysis, and experts were from plants, invertebrates, and vertebrates, and 2 from technical aspects. So for each publication, we assessed the technical quality for the EMR range, conditions of the experiments for results and methods, and the biological quality, and were assessed with appreciation grade from 0, which correspond to bad or insufficient quality, to 3, that was excellent. And we made extraction of the finding and knowledge gaps. So several points are remarkable with plants. Well, there are many, but let me highlight 3 of them. The first is that they are immobile organisms. They can't escape environmental cues. As a consequence, they must perceive and adapt their metabolism and development to these constraints. Also, their scheme of development places a high proportion of cells at the direct interface of the environment. It means that the surface to volume ratio is very high. This is the contrary for animals, and the price plants pays to this particular scheme of development is the fact that they are immobile. They can't escape environmental cues. And also, plants have no conscience, and in this way, they also constitute outstanding reporters of environmental events, including electromagnetic field. Well, it is important to distinguish the conditions of the studies. Basically, there are 2 kinds. The first one is laboratory. Let me come back to the, okay. The first one is laboratory studies, where a precise control of experimental conditions can be achieved. And the second are field studies, where plants are subjected to, in open area, to a wide variety of environmental stresses, like wind, UV, pathogens, etc. And secondly, we must consider also the parameters that are considered. We can look at elementary events, which most of them are at the molecular level, such as molecular changes, gene expression, pigment content, etc. Or we can look at a more integrated response that take place mostly at the scale of the whole organism, such as grow responses or plant aspects. Different devices, sorry, yeah. Different devices can be used to expose plants to electromagnetic field. Well, of course, basically, some experimentators use communication devices such as cell phones or DECT phones. Well, this equipment should be avoided because of automatism that prevents control over the exposure condition. And also, most of the case, the exposure are done in closed field conditions, which might be absolutely avoided. It's better to use specialized equipment such as transverse electromagnetic cells, TEM or GTEM cells, which are quite economic and easy to set up and allow the generation of high amplitude polarized EMF. Another kind of devices could be used. These are the mode-stirred reverberation chamber. It's a big equipment, which is quite expensive and complex to set up, but it offers the possibility to obtain homogeneous and isotropic EMF that mimics the ones that are effectively found in the real environment. So next slide. Okay. Well, concerning the laboratory studies, there are plenty of reported effects in the literature. I will highlight some of them. Firstly, the increase in ROS metabolism that is quite often reported. For example, the work of Talek and collaborators published in 2005, and that was made on Lemna minor. And you can see that the ROS production reported by peroxidase activity increased immediately after exposure for field amplitude of 41 volt per meter and a frequency of 900 megahertz for an exposure time of 2 hours. 41 volt per meter correspond to the maximum amplitude that is allowed at this frequency. So indeed, there is an increase in ROS metabolism, and that's a good marker of plant response to environmental cues. So next slide. Oops, sorry. Okay. There are numerous reports that show this kind of responses, and very recently, Chandal and collaborator in 2017, working on onions with an exposure from 1 to 4 hours at 2100 megahertz, showed that lipid peroxidation, hydrogen peroxide and superoxide anion increased after the exposure, and they make very nice photos of these responses, and it's going very well in the direction that the team of Talek show in 2005. These increases were shown also at the enzymatic level, where you can see that some SOD activity or CAT activity increased after exposure. And it's also a good sign of plant responses to environmental stresses. After exposure, working on tomato, Roux and collaborators showed that a rapid drop in ATP content occurred 30 minutes after a short 10-minute exposure at 900 megahertz. And ATP is the main energy molecule of the cell. And this decrease was also seen on the adeninate energetic charge, the AEC, that reflect the energetic status of the cell. So this response is transitory. It comes back to normal after 1 to 2 hours. Well, the same team also show that gene expression occurs after exposing tomato plants to high-frequency electromagnetic field. And the genes that were shown to increase after exposure were stress-related. For example, calmodulin, this is a small calcium protein that rapidly increase after different kind of plant stimulation, like wind, for example, or wounding. And you can see that electromagnetic field as well induce an increase that was quite important and rapid because it occurs only 15 minutes after the end of a 10-minute exposure. The exposure was quite low, it's 5 volt per meter for 10 minutes. Oops, yeah. Well, if we quit the molecular scale to look what happens on the whole scale, the whole plant scale, well, we can report some very interesting work done by Algamuge and collaborator in 2015. They exposed soybean seedlings to various amplitude of electromagnetic field, and they measured the plant after this treatment. And they show that generally the exposed plants were diminished in terms of growth as in different parts of the plants. I mean the epicotyl or the hypocotyl, as well as the roots. So this experiment showed that the exposure could cause an effect on the plant growth, which is a high level of integration. Next slide. These changes in plant development was also reported by Talek and collaborators on their work in 2005 on Lemna minor, and higher amplitude increases the growth inhibition. The difference remains visible for 14 days after the end of the exposure. So this is quite interesting because it shows that exposure of plants to electromagnetic field could cause a long-term response. And that's what we obtained studying Rosa plants, the study conducted by Gremio and the collaborators in 2016. What we show essentially is that when we exposed aged plants, I mean, having all their organs, we show essentially no differences between exposed and control plants. So it was quite frustrating, but when we exposed only very little plants, then we showed that the existing organs were not affected in their growth or development by the exposure, but the later forming organs were affected, axis of second orders, that they were not present at the time of exposure. Well, we can see later that this axis growth was lower by approximately 40%. So if the organs are present in plants, they are essentially not affected by the exposure in terms of growth, but the organs that were not present at the time of exposure were later affected. There have been relatively few studies in the field experiments studying the effect of high-frequency electromagnetic field in the real environment. The main difficulty here is to strictly associate phenotypic traits to EMF, electromagnetic field effects, because some other environmental cues may produce similar symptoms. So it is very important to have a good knowledge of the metabolic pathways that may be affected by EMF exposure to evaluate the effect on field. So I choose to present two reports. The first one is from Agarty, published in 2010 on trembling aspen, cultivated in shielded, mock-shielded or not shielded area. And this work reported some changes that were most frequent in non-shielded trees. The problem is that with this study is that they were not very well done experiment for the quantity of radiation that the plants were subjected to. So it's very difficult to obtain a close relationship between the exposure and the plant responses. The second report is a work done in Bamberg, Germany, based on the distance of plants to base station for telecommunications, and the authors listed a series of physical damages that they can detect on trees. I listed some of them on these slides, like crown transparencies, brown leaves, irregular growth, and etc. And they make a statistical analysis and show that the occurrence of unilateral damages on the point that it has an important, argument for a causal relationship between exposure to EMF and damages, because most of the times they appear on the side that is turned in direction of the antenna. They show a high variety of damages, such as abnormal development, brown leaves, a high level of damage in trees within the vinicity of phone masts, and trees with unilateral damages, as I said before, just in direction of the phone antenna. And the statistical analysis showed that the most affected side of damaged trees constitute a different group. So it suggests that electromagnetic field do have an effect on the development of tree. As usual, the problem with environmental studies, I mean, in the real environment, is to make a strict and unequivocal relationship between the damage that you can see on the tree and the electromagnetic field. Well, in conclusion, some responses were reported after exposing plants to HF-EMF. Several reviews are available in the bibliography. So if you're interested in this field, you can find very valuable reviews. These include metabolic changes, gene expression modification, and alteration of plant development, both in laboratory studies and open environment. But for now, some aspects remain unanswered, and that's a shame, not even really addressed in the literature. And that include two very important points: the cellular component that firstly interfere with the EMF. It should be very important to assess this, this information. And secondly, how to plant cope with long-term exposure, such as those encountered in the urban environment, where the number of antennas that are needed for telecommunication is high. And some knowledge gaps could be to improve the quality of the exposure system. That's a very important point. There are quite a lot of experiments in the exposing plant to EMF field that are not very well set up regarding the exposure devices. And absolutely, we have to stop the use of telecom devices and prefer specialized devices such as stem cells and other well-defined devices. Secondly, use reliable markers, for example, enzymatic and or gene expressions, which are both inexpensive and they allow to report changes in the behavior of plants. These markers also bring valuable information of molecular events. I mean, you can name very precisely what the changes are, and you can address these variables shortly after exposure. It means that you minimize the interference with other environmental cues. They also allow a better link with exposure than growth studies that may integrate environmental signals other than EMR. Well, remember that plants grow slowly, and so the more you are waiting to measure growth, the more likely interference with other environmental cues are higher. Well, ideally, these biochemical molecular studies should be completed by growth studies to make a complete view at two different scales to assess change at the scale of the whole plant. It has a lot of importance at this point because plants can't escape environmental cues, so they always show their discomfort by reducing their growth. So field experiments should this way relate symptoms observed to biological and molecular changes. And I'm almost done, I think. Yeah.
Well, Alain, thanks a lot. Perfectly on time.